Welcome to r/Reddit Revenge. This is a story of someone getting back at someone with revenge after being wronged. Thank you friends for subscribing to the channel and for so many likes. The first story. The tenant stubbornly tried not to pay the debt and I legally made him pay. The second story. After years of court battles, OP organizes a calculated revenge, ensuring that justice is served. The third story. Annoying gym goer tests patience. Faces subtle revenge when denied equipment sharing request. And the first story is paying me with bounced checks? I own a historic downtown building that consists of several units that are each occupied by different businesses. Picture a strip mall, but in a historic building. Used to be an opera house before it was divided up by the prior owners. It's an attractive spot because I've always got private parking off the street, and it offers my tenants a really nice storefront on our town's main street. It's not a major source of income for me, so I actually charge well under what I could, and I cover the costs of heating it, which is a very big deal in New England. I bought the place specifically so a friend of mine could start his dream business, and my other tenants are also all startups by folks trying to get into business for themselves. For those reasons, I tend to be very patient and forgiving with my tenants. I don't instantly freak out if the rent is late. I don't micromanage what they do with their space. And if they get in a bind, I work with them as long as they're honest and show me the same respect I do them. So when I describe the petty revenge I enacted on my former tenant, JJ, not real name, I want you to understand that I really did try to take the high road, but he effed around so much I felt he really needed to find out. Basically, a tenant who had been in the building when I bought it decided to retire and close his business. JJ was one of several prospective tenants, but was the first come so first served. He signed his lease and told me his check for the deposit and first month were in the mail. Being a trusting person, I gave him the keys and wished him well on opening a gaming store. I'm an old D&D gamer, so it tugged my heartstrings. He was a nice enough guy in person, always polite, but did this weird thing I associate with people who aren't as smart as they think they are. He tended to try to use a lot of $50 words to sound intelligent, but would use them incorrectly and would screw up basic grammar like your and your. I mention this because in some of our conversations he got really condescending, and he definitely thought he was going to pull something over on me. The promised checks never came. I told him and set up a time to get cash from him, and suddenly his kid was sick so he couldn't meet. He sent me $100 through a payment app, and when I confirmed I got it, he ghosted me for a little bit instead of paying the rest. And by then we were in the next month, so he was now late on 2 months' rent, hadn't put down his deposit, and I started talking eviction if he didn't get his SH together. Throughout this, he never said anything about having a hard time making rent or needing extra time. If he had, I would have worked with him. Instead, it was lies and excuses and BS. He begged for another chance, paid me a little more through the app, and then mailed me 2 counter checks. Both of them bounced, and when I told him they had, he blamed the bank. Then I found out he hadn't switched the utilities to his name, which is required in the lease, so I had to cover those to keep the power from being turned off in the dead of winter. He was now in the hole over $4,000 with me and wasn't paying, so I called the cops for the bounced checks. They gave him a mandatory 5 days notice to pay or charges would be pressed. He also filed a quit notice before I could file for eviction, which allowed him to avoid court. He got the payments to me finally by the skin of his teeth, after first trying to argue that he didn't need to pay the deposit because I'll just get it all back anyway. I advised him that that's not how anything works. The first full payment was the deposit, so he was still short a month of rent, and if he didn't pony up, he'd be getting arrested the next day. I also reported him to the USPSIS for mailing checks he knew were going to bounce. I also decided I was going to get some petty revenge by legally nickel and diming that deposit as much as possible. Hired professional cleaners and a professional locksmith to change the door's locks, instead of doing it myself. 3 months worth of unpaid utilities, maximum late fees, fees for bounced checks. I took out everything allowable by law and whittled that $900 deposit down to about $20. The dumb A had the temerity to text me a week after his eviction, asking about the status of his deposit being returned. I advised him that per state law, I would be putting his check in the mail on day 30, from his original lease end date, not the quit date, so he'd be seeing that massive check in about 6 weeks. I then informed every landlord, realtor, and property manager I knew in our area about him, with a warning not to rent to him. So while I sympathize with people trying to break into business, don't bite off more than you can chew, and definitely don't try to F over someone who knows the law a lot better than you do. Edit. I try to be a great landlord. I had a lot of decent landlords when I was renting during school, but the last one I had was a nightmare, to the point where I sued the SH out of him and won. So I know what bad ones are like, and I do my best not to be like him. I also made a point of educating myself thoroughly about my state's landlord and tenant law, and my leases have been vetted by a lawyer who specializes in property law. Tenants should know the law too. It cuts down on unnecessary BS when everyone's fully aware of the rules and then follows them. You're a person who understands and supports those who want to develop their business, but as we see, not everyone appreciates this. Your tolerance and willingness to help start up businesses makes you a special landlord. This is especially important given that you have chosen tenants who are working on their own businesses. Your history shows that you're willing to meet people halfway if they're honest and respectful. Regarding your former tenant JJ, you showed understanding and patience in trying to help him when he was in a difficult situation. However, his repeated deceptions and soon lost trust changed your mind. Your actions were a clear response to his ingratitude and deception, an indication that there will be consequences for trying to deceive you. I hope he's learned this lesson and will not make similar mistakes again. It's important to remain honest and patient in your dealings with others, but ready to take responsible action in the event of violations. The next story is Hell Hath No Fury Like Me Scorned. Hello, a couple of years ago I posted a revenge story involving my stepmother's shanty wife, my stepbrother Shorty, and my dad, who's now resting in a purple urn. Well, I finally have an update. To recap, Shorty, my stepbrother, was my dad's power of attorney while he was sick and had heinously abused his position, stealing a very large sum of money. When I got involved, I got a restraining order against Shorty, filed charges, took over my dad's care, and exacted some sweet revenge in the process. I was warned by the court's victim's advocate, who is my first cousin because that's how it is in that town, that bringing Shorty to trial for what he did would take a very long time. She was correct. In the meantime, I monitored Shorty's online activities. When he moved out of state, I called the court and let them know just in case it violated his bail. When he got a job as a truck driver, I called the court to let them know he was repeatedly leaving his home state just in case it violated its bail. Then 6 months ago, I got a call from the same victim's advocate. The trial was going to be set soon, and the court wanted input from the family regarding possible plea deals and sentencing. He was indicted on felony elder abuse and was facing 15 years in prison. The advocate let me know that the family could request prison time, or plea him down to work release with restitution. The upside to prison was obvious, but the downside would be that we would not likely receive restitution since he'd be perpetually poor and in prison. With work release, we would receive restitution, but he would have his freedom, somewhat. She wanted to know which we preferred. I asked for the night to think it over. Shorty's future rested in my hands, and I wanted to savor it. What kind of god did I want to be? To decide, I needed to do some math. If he went to prison for 15 years, he would be out in half or less. 7 years is a long time, but restitution would surely take as long, if not longer, and I would get the pleasure of taking his money every month, for years and years and years. I liked the thought of him working every day, toiling away in SH conditions for SH pay, and him knowing that a portion of that SH day would be for nothing. I loved the thought that I would be the reason for it. So I called her back and told her we would be okay with a plea deal to felony supervised release and restitution. I didn't hear anything further until last week, when the advocate called me again to let me know he'd accepted a deal. The deal. He pled guilty to felony elder exploitation first degree. He received 15 years, split and suspended, which means he won't serve any jail time. 2 years will be on felony work supervision, where he'll have to call into his parole officer every day and be drug tested almost as frequently. After that, he'll be on regular probation for up to 5 years. The judge will schedule check-ins with him to ensure he's paying restitution and meeting the requirements of his work release and parole. The restitution. He has to pay back $130,539.39. He was ordered to pay $300 a month beginning January 1st, 2024. My math gamble paid off. It'll take him 36 years to pay that back at $300 a month. If he misses a payment, he'll go to jail. I will be in his life for decades, taking back from him bit by bit what he stole. So I think that's going to be it. I've done everything I can do, apart from being there to catch him if he violates the terms of his release. Thank you for reading this tangled web of revenge. You obviously proved to be a strong and determined person, becoming the main character in a difficult trial, and using all the opportunities to restore justice. It's important that you've used all available legal means to secure redress and justice. Your involvement in the case has allowed you to take control of the situation and influence the future of Shorty by choosing a strategy that will bring you redress for years to come. Your prudence in choosing between jail time and work supervision, along with your ability to remain calm, shows your maturity and dignity. I think you've chosen a good option, first of all for yourself and then for the perpetrators. Your story is an example of how determination and belief in justice can lead to significant results in the fight against crime and the restoration of law and order. The third story is, cut the line at the gym. Go find something else to exercise with. There's a regular at the gym I go to. I find him annoying as hell, so let's call him, I don't know, AH. The kind of guy who seemingly gives zero SHs about anyone else. He cares only about getting to where he's going or doing what he's set out to do as quickly as possible, with no respect to others. The kind of guy who will, as you're having a 30-second rest between sets, walk up to you and ask if he can just use that machine quickly, and then proceed to not give it back until he's done, because he's in a hurry, often bringing along his kids as well, so you'll have to wait for not just him but them too, because obviously his time is important. So oops if he just took over that machine you were using. You weren't using it this exact second, so shrug. We happen to work at the same place and bike the same way there, so I see him occasionally. Same thing, zigzags past everyone at twice their speed, without a single care, except for getting where he's going as fast as possible. I was once about to have a crash because he flew past me on the inside of a corner with no warning. He races into the street instead of using the newly built bike lane literally right next to it, because technically it's a few seconds quicker for him and screws the cars and buses, I guess. Anyways, baseline set. So to this recent event. I go to the gym. Outside of staffed hours, you enter through a special passageway using your membership card. This is also where you exit, and it only allows one person through at a time. As I got there this time, there was a long line of people in the process of exiting the gym. As it only takes one person at a time, this takes a few minutes, and there was a queue building up of people waiting to enter. There were already people there as I came who had been waiting a little while, and we kept waiting a few more minutes. Enter AH. By pure coincidence, he times it so perfectly that he comes in right as the last person exits. Proceeds to, without a single glance at the rest of the lobby, walk past every single one of us waiting with the sort of complete confidence that left me literally speechless, so that he can enter first without waiting at all. Like, of course, he didn't even bother looking because his time is important. He ain't gonna stand in line like a normal person. My mind could hardly process that he just did this without any care in the world and without even noticing. I got a glimpse of eye contact with as he did this, and I think he could tell me eyes were shooting absolute daggers. My blood is boiling just from the principle of it. I go in, do a short stint on the treadmill, still absolutely fuming 20 minutes later. Walk over to use a barbell, sit down at it and take a short break before I start my set. Cue AH. You using this? Yes. No way I'm letting this go to him. Can we alternate? I'm gonna use this. There are more barbells like this. I'm petty and I know it. I normally don't have a problem sharing stuff with people or alternating, but I do with him now. Someone has taken them somewhere. My mouth doesn't say it out loud, but my eyes tell him in no uncertain words that IDGAF GTFO. He clearly gets the message as he goes, whatever, I'll use something else. As he leaves, I say somewhat quietly, yes, you will. Extremely small victory, but still made me feel at least a little revenge. Also, I've probably gotten him off my back for the future, so yay. Throughout the story, it's hard not to feel outraged by this behavior. OP decides to deny this man the use of the dumbbell, creating a sense of satisfaction and a small victory. This is a kind of act of justice, where OP indicates that unreasonable behavior is met with a response. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Have a good day.